Hey guys, it's Krystal Lucier here, also known as your Home Sweet Home 519 Realtor. Krystal Moore, this is Realtor Life, and I'm very excited, guys. We have the one and only Peter Meyer here. He is the broker of record of Royal LePage Triland and my personal broker of record, and just so excited. Thanks for joining us, Peter.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, it's a delight. And I've mentioned to you probably several times, but you have such an inspirational journey and story because you started as one of us, right?
I
So
did.
so what got you into real estate and if you feel comfortable, how long ago was that?
Well, I got into real estate in May of 1989, so
Okay.
likely before many of your viewers were even born. When I got into the business, I remember my dad, the first words he said to me, who he was a hardcore, hardworking, blue collar worker. And he said to me, the market is crashing. Why the heck would you get into the business at this time? And my words back to him was, if I'm going to be great at any business, I need to know how to do it in the worst of times so that I can enjoy the best of times.
Very,
And I will never forget those words because they have rang true so many times throughout my lifespan of real estate, being 35 years, that obviously there's ups and downs all the way through that.
yeah,
And you have to remember that you just got to keep working hard when things get tough and enjoy when things get a little bit easier.
yeah.
And when things get a little bit easier, make sure that you understand that things are going to get a little tougher again. So make sure that you're putting a little bit away.
Now at this point, I guess it's like a legend, but we have heard about how interest rates were back in the 80s.
Yeah, so when I got into the business, interest rates were somewhere between, I'm going to say, in 12 to 15%. When I get into the business, I remember my early days. I only sold real estate for like 3.5 years.
Okay.
And but I remember some of my sales were properties that the mortgage on the property was more than the house was worth at
Okay.
the time that we were selling. And in fact, I had a real estate friend of mine that I took the real estate courses with, and he went and joined a different real estate company who hired me to sell his house for him. And it
Uh,
was just because he knew that he needed to have a impartial person really kind of guiding him through it.
yeah.
And he knew how, what I did to sell houses in that tough time. And I was actually fairly successful in the short time that I was in the business with my marketing plans and how I worked systems and things of that sort. And he was selling underwater, and so it was just a matter of, I know today we might be getting into that situation with a
Yes.
few people. And realtors are, a lot of times have the misnomer that, well, there's no commission. You can't earn commission if the house is worth less than what the mortgage is. But that's not the case at all. When people hire you, they're signing a contract, and that contract is to pay you the commission no matter what.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much equity is in the house. It's so, but you have to have the conversation. Do they have access to funds to be able to pay you even in that situation? And for this gentleman, he had to go to some savings that he had and use his savings in order to pay the commissions. But it was the situation that he was in his life at that point in time.
Yeah.
And but that was always kind of interesting to number one, be selling houses that there wasn't equity in, and
Yeah.
number two, having somebody who was actually a realtor from a different company hire me to sell his house was
Yeah.
interesting. So
That
yeah,
says a lot.
yeah, yeah.
But
So.
and that's great experience. I mean, I think there was I wouldn't call it a heyday. I mean, COVID was a heyday, but there's obviously like history repeats itself, right? So the lessons you learn in a down market are always going to be so much more valuable than I guess like managing the lineup in a really, really busy market.
You know what? I think it's my opinion that the salespeople who are the most successful salespeople, on average,
Yeah.
overall in their career, are salespeople who got into the business in a slower market
Yes. That's a really good
because
point.
they learned how to what they had to do and to be successful, and they learned that they had to work hard to put things together. And it's unfortunate that and it's not to say this case for all people by any means, but when
Yeah.
I look at it, I say, I look at a lot of successful people learned the basics and had to learn how to master the basics
Yeah.
when times were tough because they had time to do that and they really had to stand out. So they had to work at it.
Yes.
And then that, as long as they continued to do that, even when things got a little bit easier, perhaps in the marketplace, they just, exponentially benefited from that more so. Whereas people who got into the market when things were a little bit easier and you really didn't have to do a lot of work,
Yeah.
then when things got tough, they didn't know how to work a tough market because they only knew how to work a market that was pretty easy all the way through.
Yes.
So that's not to say everybody, because there's lots of people who will, okay, now this is the market that we're in and it's a tougher market. I need to master working that market and have done that as well. So,
Yeah, I do find that too. And I remember an agent like very vividly calling me in 2023. We had put an offer, or we were talking about putting an offer on a house he had listed. And I said, "Oh, like how's the activity?" And I wasn't trying to get him to like share more than how's the activity, but he just kind of went on a very long he was saying, "Oh my goodness, like I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Like I don't know what else to do." And I said, "Oh, like what have you done?" And he said, "Well, I put it on the MLS." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then what else?" He's like, "But that's what I did. Like I put it on the MLS." And I was like, "Oh."
yeah, yeah,
Because that's all you had to do in 2021 and 2022,
right,
right?
right.
So for
Yeah,
him, it was like, this is what I'm doing the things. This is it.
yeah.
So yeah, so I think you definitely learn in the down market. But okay, so you were for 3.5 years, you were a realtor, and then what happened?
Well, one of the things that I had to do was I was 24 when I got into the business, which was, nowadays we have lots of younger people who are getting into the business.
Yeah,
Back then, it was a little bit less common for younger people to be getting into the business. So I knew that I had to, if I was going to be successful in the business, I had to, work harder, work
sure.
smarter. And one of the things that I did was on my 2-year anniversary, by then I had my education to apply for my broker's license.
Yes.
I remember times knocking on people's doors for a listing appointment, and one gentleman in particular said, "Oh, I must have been talking to your father on the phone. Is he, on his way as well?" And I said, "No, it was myself that you were speaking with." He goes, "Well, you're so young." I said, "I understand that. Um, However, I tell you what, you give me 15 minutes of your time, and if after 15 minutes you don't feel that I am the best salesperson to work on your behalf, we shake hands and I'm on my way, and you look to hire somebody else." Needless to say, I think I had that listing signed before I even sat down in the room because I was able to, have the confidence but not be cocky about that,
Yep.
and yet back it up,
Yep.
and one of the things I used to say was, you can have somebody who's been in the business for 30 years. However, it doesn't really matter, how many years they've had their real estate license. It's what they've done, every year that they've had their license. And so, I was able to, after 2 years say, "Hey, I'm a broker. I've gone through, taken additional education. But I worked my tail off. I worked 60 to 80 hours a week
Yep.
when I was that age because I was able to. And I just said to them that, listen, this is how I work the business, and this is what I do. And you might have somebody who perhaps has a lot more tenure in the business.
Yep.
but they're not putting in a lot more work at all. In fact, they
Yeah.
might be putting in a fifth of the amount of work that I would put into to selling your home. Now, for me at that time, that worked, right? So I'm not saying that that's the situation for everybody now, but that is how I was able to kind of break in. And when I would sit down and show them marketing plans and go through all of that, they definitely saw that, yeah, I had success, early success to be able to back up what was saying to them. So it really helped out in that way.
Perfect. And then so that was the 3.5 years. And then did you transition into like a manager role or a sales?
So I had started, probably about 2.5 years. Royal LePage at that point in time used to have management training that they would actually put on a 2-week course in Toronto
Nice.
to learn how to become a manager or, train to be a manager. At that time, I was taking it not necessarily anticipating and becoming a manager in a short period of time but
Right.
just for the additional training and knowledge,
Yes.
because that's all I
Hungry.
was focused on was
Yeah.
having knowledge. And I did that. And then there was an opportunity that came up with a young manager at the time that was up and riser within the real estate industry and creating a little bit of noise that was looking for a marketing manager.
Okay.
And her name was Sherry Chris, who many people will recognize the name. Sherry's was with Royal LePage for a number of years and then went off and worked with a number of companies in the US and is still on the speaker circuit with a lot of conferences that happen in the US, whether it's NAR or just any of the conferences that go on. She's usually one of the speakers that are there.
Nice.
Uh, and I teamed up with her in Oakville to be her marketing manager. And it was at that point in time where, boy, this goes back. Microsoft had just introduced desktop publishing, so Microsoft
Okay.
Publisher. So that was
Nice.
1994
Okay.
that was coming out, and I had worked with Xerox at the time. I was working with Royal LePage, but in conversations with Xerox, who they were looking at coming out with color photocopiers. Okay, so this is
Okay.
Whoopee.
In
Uh,
AI land, that doesn't sound like much, but at the time, it was huge, I'm sure.
It was. We were the first real estate company. In fact, in Oakville, when I worked with Sherry, we actually were one of the first real estate companies to have voicemail in
What?
offices for real
Okay.
estate. We transformed Royal LePage. Up until that point in time, Royal LePage offices were all typically cookie cutter offices, 24 salespeople, one manager, one administrator, one secretary.
Okay.
And in the 90s, real estate was going through a transition. Royal LePage was going through a big transition as a company. And what Sherry was trying to do was to build super offices, basically, right? So Hopeville became really the first super office for Royal LePage corporate offices, where we closed down a couple 24 salesperson offices, merged them into I think our first office was 80 salespeople,
Okay.
and providing support staff and technology. So we were kind of on the front end of technology in the industry with the services that we provided in that way. And one of the things was creating a marketing department was to actually have a dedicated person that was using, desktop publishing, which at the time our top salespeople were paying desktop publishers, $250 to $500 to have feature sheets created. They
Oh,
use
okay.
programs like Quark Express and PageMaker and things of that sort, but that's what the cost was at the time. And when Desktop Publisher came out, I looked at it and said, we can have one of our own secretaries actually trained to use this. It's pretty user friendly, and we can provide this service to our salespeople in-house.
Nice.
And then we worked with Xerox in with their technology. And it took us about 6 months to be able to take their photocopier and integrate it with a PC in the office And then there was another computer that had to run in between the two to be able to take the communication from the PC to transfer it to communication to a color photocopier. And that machine, I remember, cost over $100,000 to put in at a time where Royal LePage was looking at cutting expenses.
Oh,
And so there was a big sell with the president of Royal LePage at the time. However, that was really what started to transform the our offerings for salespeople in Oakville and being able to attract top salespeople because we were doing this sort of high tech stuff in house in real estate. So it was really beneficial from that standpoint. And then, building those offices, London actually became a copy of what we had done in Oakville. So in Oakville, I think we had 6 offices to start with. We took it down to 2 super offices. And then London was supposed to be a direct copy of what we had built in Oakville. And after having put in the resources and the finances to build the London marketplace and the offices to be similar to Oakville, it just never took off in the same way as how we saw Oakville take off. So I
yeah,
got sent from corporate to London to help turn the operation around and to help get the offices going in the way that they were supposed to be going or that they wanted them to go based on what I was able to achieve in Oakville. So that was in 1997 I got sent here. So I did
okay.
that. Yeah.
And he's still here, guys. So I
Yeah.
feel like it works.
Well, and what was and then after a year, Royal LePage would finally changed strategies and looked at, okay, how are we going to move forward as a company, and
Yeah,
decided to start selling off their corporate offices to franchises.
yeah,
And in London, we had taken the market share in that year, and we had over doubled our market share in that year that I was here, that first year. And we were able to sell to a local real estate company, independent, that was called Triland Real Estate, that was owned by 2 gentlemen who bought the rights to Royal LePage, and the 2 companies merged together, thus becoming Royal LePage Triland.
nice.
And I remember that announcement vividly. Our Royal LePage people were so surprised and shocked that basically Royal LePage was bought out by an independent as opposed to Royal LePage buying an independent in that way. And I was shipped out the next day to go to Hamilton to do the same thing in Hamilton.
Oh,
And
wow.
uh,
Okay.
and I said, we can't, I was not comfortable with that. I remember going back to my regional manager at that point, well, VP, which Sherry Chris had moved up to a VP position, and
Okay.
said, there's no way I can do that. I need to stay here for at least 2 weeks and help convert the transition. The new owners of Royal LePage Triland don't know Royal LePage systems at all.
Yep.
I'm sure they will, figure it out and get it up and going quite well on their own, but my Royal LePage people don't know them either.
Yeah.
And so I took my 2 week holiday and worked with them for 2 weeks on my holidays to help the transition be a little bit more smooth.
That's
And then I went
dedication.
off. Well, it was just it was the right thing to do for
Yeah.
everybody. And then I went off to Hamilton to work in Hamilton to help do the same thing in Hamilton. So
Okay. And then
yeah,
how did you get back to London?
yeah, yeah. So I was in Hamilton for about 5 months, and I realized, you know what, I liked London, and I really wanted to be back in London. I was tired of the corporate rat race by this point in time because I had been doing that, and I had a number of different office. I was on a traveling show of going out and selling marketing and all this stuff and how other offices across Ontario can be doing this and I got tired of the corporate rat race and I basically just said that unless they're able to do this for me, then I gotta leave and look for different ventures. And they weren't able to do that for me, so I resigned my position with Royal LePage Corporate, moved back to London and approached the 2 gentlemen who purchased the operation here and suggested to them that I would like to stay in real estate and I'm going to stay in a management field to some capacity. and I know how I can help you grow your business. I mean, I know it inside and out,
Yeah.
and I'd like to work for you guys. And so they agreed to that, and I decided to work for them. And it was basically a 1 year contract, and then we'll see how things go from there. And after a year, it was like, well, do you want me to stay on? And they were like, yeah, that would be good. My compensation with them, I remember, was based on, very minimal output from, from a base salary. Most of it was just all bonus based. So it was a little risk on their part, more risk on my part. But with the way I was approaching it, I didn't feel it was much of a risk at all because I was pretty confident in what I was going to be able to help them achieve and help their salespeople grow their businesses. Coaching was something that I started at that point in time. So I did one-on-one coaching with salespeople, taking their, looking at their business, what they were doing, and then helping them grow their business. And I think I had about 40, between 40 and 50 salespeople in the company that were on my coaching program. And
Wow.
that's basically, they all doubled their business by going through a coaching program, and it just really helped solidify our relationship with the owners. And they're like, for sure, it's beneficial. Let's keep this relationship going. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. And I will say, like, you can tell, I mean, you're so knowledgeable, but you can tell that you're used to the coaching because we've had, like when and I've talked about this on the podcast a lot, where if I've run a Buffini group or we've had a group of us sitting in the office, Peter will pop his head in, and then all of a sudden we get like drops of wisdom that we were not anticipating and that kind of solved all the problems we had just been masterminding. And you just have a way of explaining things as well that is just, it really hits for a number of people. Like people learn differently, that's true.
yep.
But there's never been a time that you have come in and like shared a few things when even me, and I mean, I'm a lifelong learner as well. But even if I'm just like trying to explain something, you come in and it's just like, yes, like that. That's it. Yes.
Well, I'm a pretty simple person. And so, like all of my knowledge that I have just comes from everybody else. I mean, that's how we all learn, right?
Yes.
And so I made it a habit of I would be the one that would go to all the training sessions. So whether it was like a David Knox, a Ferry, whether it was Buffini, whether it was Robbins,
Yep.
Jerry Bresser, like people, who the heck's Jerry Bresser? Jerry Bresser is actually the grandfather of real estate training.
Oh,
And so it's most of the training that's actually in place today all comes from the basis of Jerry Bresser.
wow.
And so I used to say that what I would do is I would go to all of these events, and they're all fantastic events, but it's just like going to a great big buffet. You know what?
Yep.
There's all kinds of great food there, but at the end of the day, your plate is, there's meat and potatoes and vegetables that go on your plate, and everything else is just all filler.
Yep.
And that's a lot of what happens when you go to, large events like that. A lot of it
Yep.
becomes entertainment and things of that sort. And I say, I'll go to all the events, and I'll just kind of take the meat and potatoes and be able to share that back to you.
Love that.
And so and even if you look at all the trainers today, they're all fantastic. But
Yep.
the meats and potatoes is the exact same
Yep.
from every one of them.
The fundamentals.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, and the thing that does change though is that your own personal experiences could open your eyes or your ears to hear differently from a different trainer
Yep.
who's basically saying the exact same message, but just in a different way that resonates with you at the place and time that you're in
Yep.
today. And so they're all fantastic from that standpoint. But that's really all I did was just steal everybody else's information and try to break it down to a more simplistic form
Yep.
to that this is all we have to do. This is what they're saying. So let's just boom, 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 boom,
Yep.
and do this
Absolutely.
and stay focused on it.
You're right on. I mean, and they even talk about like with if you take like Tony Robbins or Buffini, they're not saying new things. It's just, and I know there's a lot of controversy with Tony Robbins shares because a lot of it is taken directly from other people. But his argument is that, okay, but did you fill out? Did you fill up an arena the way I fill up an arena? Because no, great message. They weren't hearing it. Now they are.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah.
Um, okay, so then so you mentioned Buffini. I know there's a full link with you and Buffini. How did you end up getting Royal LePage to be such an advocate of Buffini?
Well, I wouldn't say that I necessarily got them to be a full advocate of Buffini as opposed to, you know what, I through the coaching and the training that I was doing, I just had my systems of doing it, and I just was learning what I was learning, as I was going through. I became aware of Buffini in about 2006, and um, I don't even know how I kind of came across any of his stuff, but I know that in 2007 I made a point of going to California. I'm sorry, it's just escaping me.
Mastermind?
Well, it wasn't Masterminds at the time because it was just his
Yes.
head office. And it was really 100 Days to Greatness is what they were teaching
Hey,
at the
yes,
time. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to go to Buffini and learn, the 100 Days of Greatness and be able to be one of his teachers of 100 Days to Greatness because it was all the philosophies that I believed in.
yes,
And that's Buffini from my standpoint. They're all great in what they have, but I always say, like, even when we're looking at hiring new salespeople to our company, every company has different features that they have, and they have their costs and their, compensation and all that. And in my opinion, none of that matters until you know what your core value is as a person
yes.
and what is the core value of the company.
Yep,
And if the core value of the company and your personal core value match up,
yep,
then you have the greatest opportunity to reach your full potential.
absolutely.
If if you are working for a company whose core value is opposite to your core value, you will never, in my opinion, never reach your true potential, right?
That's
So
yeah,
people say, well, what's core value?
yeah,
And a lot of people like to believe that they all have the same core value because, they just think it sounds right. But it comes down to how you live and whether you actually really do have that core value.
absolutely.
Okay. We can see that in politics today, where there are a number of different people who spout out that they have this certain belief and value that they attest to,
Yeah,
but they're not living by that. So it certainly is not a core value of theirs. Just because they
absolutely.
say it, if they don't live it, then it's not. So, in a nutshell, my core value is pretty simple and basic, and it's just, what, work hard,
Yep,
learn to master the basics, and treat everybody. We always had this, when we were recruiting, do unto others as you wish them to do unto you, and that's not
and
in a, religious sense. It's just in, hey, you know what, treat people how you want to be treated.
absolutely.
And then I always had the other, belief, and I always taught my son this when he was cutting the grass and at 8 or 9 years old, and I would go back out with him and say, "Hey, that looks pretty good. But is there anything you think you can do to make it even look better?" And you could walk away from there being a little bit more proud of the job that you did because you know that nobody else could even do it any better than that.
Ooh,
And
okay.
so it's one
I
of
love
those
that.
things that no matter what job you are doing, do it at the best ability that you can,
Yeah,
knowing that if somebody else can do it better than you, that's fine. You did it the best you could do. You didn't leave anything left in the tank for that
yes.
job. And so I always had
Great.
that. I don't know where that was instilled in me from, whether it was my father or whatever, but I remember when I was a dishwasher at a golf course and I was cleaning pots at the end of the shift and I'm still scrubbing away And my boss came in, and it was like about 12, between 12 and 1 in the morning. And
Oh,
he goes, "You still working on those?" And I said, "Yeah, you know what? I'm still got a little bit more black here to get off the edges and whatnot." And he looked at them. He said, "Those things haven't been that clean since the day we bought them." You're, so it was one of those things where, you know what, to me, I just had an expectation. I wanted things to be a certain
work
way,
ethic. Yeah.
and willing to do what it needed to be done to get it there.
Yeah.
I think that that is something that a lot of people could probably improve upon in themselves.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people shortchange themselves in doing things in life by walking away before being done in a way that they could walk away and really be proud.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
they're like
Absolutely.
walk away, oh, it's good enough. But are you proud that, like if you had your five best, most important people in your world come and look at that, and would you stand up and say, I did that?
100%. Can you
Or
put
would
your
you
names to
say,
it?
I did that, and
Yeah.
kind of, type of thing. So, I'll be honest with you, those are kind of the core values that I look at in
Yeah.
people, and it's value added. So all of that comes down to value added, and it's a certain core value that, in life you get what you pay for,
Yeah.
and that's really kind of a big core value for me. When I met Buffini, Buffini was exactly that. You know what? Very funny, hilarious Irishman. But he came from a painting family, and it was when he told the story about his dad and him painting. It was the exact same thing that I had with my son, and his dad would say to Brian, when they after they finished painting a house, is that something you would turn around and say, I'm proud to put my name on that painting job?
Yeah.
And so when I heard that, that's when it really kind of clicked to me that there's a trainer who has a lot of the same core values that I believe in.
Yes.
And so it just kind of connected and resonated with me in that way. When I came back from that, I know that I approached our VP of marketing at the time and suggested that they really need to check out Brian Buffini.
Yeah.
And I was so impressed with his training. And I had a pretty good name in the company, throughout the company, for my training and what I was doing in training and things of that sort. So I think it carried a little bit of weight when I had suggested that they check out Brian Buffini, and which they did, and they also agreed that the core values that he instilled in his training was a Royal LePage core value, and
Yeah.
that's the reason why I'm at Royal LePage was because when I started out in real estate, core values matched up,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So it's important.
It's so good. And I know like this is my going into my 16th year in real estate. And I started in Ottawa with a different company. And when I moved to Guelph before London, I've been in three cities, but the reason I went with Royal LePage is that the company I had from didn't have an office in Guelph. And I tried, but I had liked the core values, the giving back in the community. And I had kind of I had no idea. I was interviewing with everyone, and I interviewed with Royal LePage, Royal City in Guelph, and everything just lined up, just like you're saying. And to find out when I was able to move here, you made the transition so smooth and so easy. And I do believe that it's Royal LePage, it is the values, but if you fit and it fits with you, um, you just feel proud, not even to do work, but also to be part of something. And I think it's a really good point you make. Um, Now I wanted to just talk quickly about so speaking of core values, all that you do in the community. So, and this is where you don't do it for shout outs, I realize, but it is a really big deal. And so I know that you, with Royal LePage, the Royal LePage Shelter Foundation, um, because it was COVID and there was so much flying at everyone, I don't know how many people even know, but you did something really cool with a golf fundraiser right in the middle of COVID. Could you share about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I mean, as a lot of companies do, they have golf tournaments, charity tournaments to raise money for whichever charity they're raising for. Um, the one thing with COVID, obviously, everything got shut down, as everybody's aware of. But the one activity that the government, thought was going to be okay to continue to do because it was outdoors and limited connection with people and things of that was to be able to continue to play golf to a certain extent. So I went off of a formula that Hockey Helps the Homeless basically had, which was the participant basically pays a fee
Yeah.
and the participant tries to raise funds. And then from that, the participant is treated to being almost like a pro athlete, so to speak. And so we looked at it and we thought, you know what, we could put together a golf tournament and have 20 to 24 people because that fit the parameters that were laid out at the time. We would have that each golfer had to raise a minimum of $1,000. So we put the onus on them to do that. They had to pay their way for the golf tournament as well, so they still had to pay, the registration fee and that for the golf tournament. But what we would do is we would have a an extra golf cart with concierge service for each group that was going out. And so anything that they needed as golfers, as far as whether it was food or if all of a sudden they needed a new shirt because they spilled the coffee, we'd go and get them a shirt, whatever it would be. We tried to treat them as best as we can with special, white gloves and
Yes.
and everything. And so it was just again, it was stealing an idea. Hockey Helps the Homeless is all on that basis that you're treated as a semi-pro athlete and you have a
Yeah.
pro in your dressing room and everything's set up concierge-wise in your dressing room. And we tried to transfer that same philosophy to the golf tournament. Oddly enough, or thankfully enough, that tournament actually, raised, quite a bit more than we had anticipated. In fact,
So good.
we raised more in that tournament in the 2 years, each year that we did that tournament, which I think we did it that way 2 or 3 years, with a limited group of golfers.
Yeah.
We raise more money doing that than we do having a full field of 144 golfers,
Yeah.
And so it was something that, again, just worked at the time and the circumstances that we had. But it was great because I think what also made it successful was because of the situation that we were in. Most companies, everybody got away from doing anything, from
Yeah.
doing any tournaments. So there was a lot of interest in taking part in this
Yes.
because there wasn't many golf tournaments that were taking place at the time. So yeah, it was just, again, it's just having an opportunity and being able to try and capitalize on it. So yeah.
Absolutely. And it's the impact on the community, right? So again, to core values, but it's the like Royal LePage and the Shelter Foundation. And so for anyone that doesn't know, Royal LePage Shelter Foundation in every community, and I actually you can maybe clarify that. I don't know if does the brokerage pick the organization. So in London it goes to Anova.
Yeah. So yes, as brokerages we do. So I mean through number one, it's just a matter of which women's shelter services are available in each area,
Yeah.
and whether or not the brokerages are that's the one that the brokerages want to support and whatnot. So in the London area, we have Innova and Strathroy. We have the Rural Women's Community Center that we support. In St. Thomas, we have the Violence Against Women community that we support. And then in Woodstock, it's called DASO. And each one of them serve a specific different purpose. And so DASO, for instance, from my understanding, really functions to provide the communications, the telecommunications for a lot of the shelters and things of that sort. And they also provide services direct services to women as well. The Violence Against Women in St. Thomas is really more of an emergency setup where you're in a situation, you got to go somewhere and you need to go now where do you go? And so it's more of a short-term emergency situation. And then London and Nova becomes a little bit more of a long-term type of situation as well. So,
Yeah, and the money that's raised. So this golf tournament I'm talking about is was amazing, but there's also a huge group of Royal LePage agents that are going off to trek in Cambodia and Thailand. And that like there's different things that happen every year. We have like commission donations. You can actually, that's what I do. Like you donate right
yep.
from your commission. But yeah, it's a really, really big piece. You mentioned hockey helps the homeless, and I just wanted to circle back for 1 second. So my husband Brett also loves hockey helps the homeless, but do you want to just share a little bit because I think I know there's other communities that do it, but London does it really well too. What is that?
Okay, well, let me before we jump into that, which I will,
Okay.
I just want to
So
kind of just wrap up the women's shelter. Is that
yes,
yes, as Royal LePage Triland, through all kinds of our agents making donations, our agents having different fundraising events throughout the year
yes,
themselves, and
yeah,
Cambodia track and all of those things. Our support staff who also make donations. We have a
yes,
couple of support staff. Things throughout the year that they do to contribute as well. Royal LePage Triland typically donates back to those shelters over $100,000 a year. And so from our salespeople, it's just, our salespeople a lot of times don't always get the best publicity out there, being in real estate sales.
yeah,
And yet there's so much that they do and give back to the community that shouldn't go unnoticed. And so it's really important to for them to be recognized of giving back over $100,000 a year to these to the women's shelter. And that's just the women's shelter. And then we go into all the other things that our salespeople support as well. So
absolutely.
Hopefully Helps the Homeless is fantastic. I can't remember. It must have been about 2016, 2017 that we got involved in Hockey Helps the Homeless as a company. I used to run just a Thursday hockey skate for our salespeople, whoever wanted to come out and do that. And then I found out about Hockey Helps the Homeless. And of course, the name itself just ties right into real estate.
Yeah,
And so it's something that we decided, hey, let's put a team into Hockey Helps the Homeless. The basic premise of it is that, again, as players, you're treated in a semi-professional kind of way. You drive up, you pull up to the front doors, kids come out and grab your hockey bag out of your car and your sticks. They tag everything. They walk it down to your room for you. You walk into your room, your shirt's hung there with your name on it, and your socks are there, and then there's a little goodie bag, and there's a big table in the center of the room that's got all kinds of Gatorade and soap and tape and whatever you need for the day. You're just treated awesomely for that. Each player has to raise a minimum amount of dollars to participate in the tournament. And then they have special prizes for those who do, certain levels of fundraising and things of that sort. But the big draw to it is that they have ex-NHL players that are participating, and I could say WHL players now, but just women players before there
yeah,
was actually the women's league. Whether Spooner is always part of it. I mean, I can't remember all the ladies that take part, but so it's not just for guys. Ladies participate in it as well. And it's fantastic. We've had over the years, we've had Steve Thomas as one of our players. We've had Rick Vive. We've had oh goodness, Lori Boschman. Last year we had Rob Prusty. So just a lot of different, and to sit there and
yeah,
um, listen to their stories and their war stories as
yeah,
players, and they just love sharing the dressing room talk with the guys as well. And
yeah.
so it's a fun day. But at the end of it, it's a serious need in our communities, and
It
it's
really
every
is.
community right across the country in
Yeah.
North America, unfortunately, is homelessness. And so it's a great way again for us to be able to find a way to raise some funds for a very worthwhile cause.
Yes, and what a Canadian way to do it because
Exactly.
Brett is actually going to watch our nephew Lex. He's 3.5, but his dad's been working with him every day for the last like year and a half or 2 years to learn to skate and to learn to play hockey. And so now he's one of the best kids on this brand new little hockey team.
Who
But
Brett
he's
is, or the
no
nephew?
Lex. He's 3.5. Brett's been working. Yeah, he's trying to get better than the 5-year-olds. No, Brett's going to watch him.
Good, good.
But it's just, yeah, it's such a great thing. Okay, so we have about a little less than 10 minutes left. So I just want to focus on um maybe some takeaways. So this is a time in the real estate industry, and I mean it will cycle. Things get the highs, the lows, but there is sometimes a lot of stress when things seem like they're slowing down. There's a lot of naysayers that will come in and say the market is crashing. Probably every year someone will say the market is crashing. But what would you say to agents if they're kind of struggling to figure out like things aren't moving, what do I do?
Yeah. Well, this is where I'm not popular with a lot of people. And the reason that is because I've, again, 35 years, I've seen all kinds of different markets, and a lot of people are short-sighted and only see the last 7 years of market, or not even that, last 5 years, right? So people ask me, how's the market? I said, we're in a great market. We are in a very good market right now. And it all depends on what you mean by that.
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of people mean, oh, well, can I make money as a real estate salesperson really easily? And I'm going to say, no. That isn't the definition of a good market, in my opinion. Okay. A good market is when consumers are being dealt with fairly and
Yeah.
equitably. And I believe that right now we are in a good balanced market. We've teetered within that balanced market for the last 2 years, kind of on the higher end where it might be kind of a seller's market into the balanced market. We've teetered down where, it's the a balanced market maybe down into a buyer's market. But we're right in that balanced market.
Yeah.
And a balanced market is the optimal market where nobody's excited but nobody's being taken advantage of either. And so that's a healthy market. So I kind of look at it the same as saying, losing weight or anything that you're looking to do. If it comes too quickly and easily,
Yes.
long term, it's probably not healthy,
Yes, absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
So that's where I think our market right now is. We're in a good, healthy market. We have enough inventory out there for buyers to make wise, educated decisions
Yep.
and to have time to be able to do that. We also have sellers that have they purchased their property within the time frame that I say you need to have as a minimum time frame of purchasing a property to make sure that you're getting out with your head above water, which is a minimum of 5 to 7 year purchase frame.
Yeah.
If you look at what the average purchase price was of a property in 2019, compared to what the average purchase price of a property is today, we are still above that, well above
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
Okay. And that's your 6 year mark, right? Even if you look at 2020, we're still pretty close to that.
Yep.
Okay. Where we might start to not be there for a seller is when if they purchased in 21 or 22.
Yes.
Well, in 21 or 22, we're only talking about a 3 or 4 year time frame
Yeah.
from the time that you purchased. Let's wait until you're 5 to 7 years out and see where you're at that point in time. So I do believe we're in a healthy market. I think, again, salespeople are making a good living, like
Yes.
good professional salespeople who have
Yep.
the right systems in place and are working their systems properly and consistently are still making a very good living.
Yeah,
People who don't have a good solid basis of systems in place are the ones that are struggling.
for sure.
And so, it's a matter of you got to learn how to put your systems in place, and it's never too late to learn. It's just like anything in life. I mean, when's the best time to do it is, you know, 5 years ago. But if you didn't do it then
Second
today's
best
the best.
time.
Is today, right? And just start moving forward from there. So,
Absolutely.
um, you know what? I think that we're going to be in the same market for at least another year. Are we going to see a little bit more of a flurry of activity come the fall time, like with the latest interest rate reductions? I don't think we're going to see much of a flurry of activity. We might year over year see some increase because we last year things slowed down because of the anticipation of going into an election. So we might see that now everybody's kind of knows where we're at. We know what we're playing with, and interest rates are down a little bit. So we might see a little bit more activity in comparison to same month last year
Yeah.
for, September, October, November. In coming into the springtime, again, I think in the springtime, we're going to see a great growth of activity in the springtime in comparison to the year before.
Yes.
Because the year before was this February, March, April, May, where chaos was happening in North America because
Yep.
of things that were coming out of the US. And
Yep.
so sales were down because of that. Sales next year might actually be up, and they might look like they're up percentage wise a lot greater than they really are because sales were down this past fall. The key that I always say to salespeople, and particularly in our marketplace, is that, we're going to have somewhere between 8 to 10,000 houses that change hands.
Yes.
Just go get your 20 or 25, whatever it is that you need. If you need 50, you know what? Leave the other, 7,950 for everybody else to worry about, right? You just have to find your 50, right?
Yeah.
Or you find your 25 or your 10, whatever it is that you need to, to do to be in the place that you want to be. There's lots of activity out there. There's lots of
There
houses
is.
that people need help selling. There's lots of buyers that need help buying.
Yes.
You just have to do the work to find yours.
Absolutely. And I think, and that like it's so true what you're saying, and it's just about the hard work and finding your systems, the fundamentals, because when you're, and I think you see, I hear it, I haven't talked to half as many agents as you have, but when people are struggling and they're not selling, and you ask them, well, have you called everyone? You know, have you reached out to people? Have you talked to your network? Have you talked to your lenders? Have you done? And usually the answer is no, but I've signed up for this app.
Right, right. They're just waiting for things to come to them. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. I know that we're getting short on time, so I do want to kind of make sure that I get this out. When I was selling real estate, I was a young kid that had high expectations of myself, and I wanted to be a millionaire. Like that was my thing, and so I listened to a lot of the different motivational speakers and positive thinking. I mean, that's what got me through life. And you know, I remember I had on the dash on the my visor of my car. I had magnetic business cards, right? So I had one that was glued there, and the magnetic one below, and on it I had I want $1 million. I am $1 million, live like $1 million, right? And it was just a
Right.
reminder to myself that every day when I'm in that vehicle, that was kind of my focus and my goal. I mean, I know that that sounds so materialistic and everything nowadays, but for me, that was what helped keep me driving, and for me to stop and knock on that door when
Yeah.
I saw. And I mean, back then, a little different in sales back then. We could
Yeah.
knock on, there was for sale by owners back then, and there was
Yeah.
expired listings and things of that sort. And so I just having those little things for you to help you stay on top of what your ultimate goal is,
Yes.
and having music, or I used to listen
Motivation.
to. I had
Yeah.
a motivational tape I listened to all the time. Swim with the Sharks, okay,
Okay.
and which I always plug that in before I would go in on a listing presentation, and that just got me into the right frame of mindset to be
Yes.
able to deliver my peak performance.
Amazing.
Okay?
And that's what it's about, right?
Exactly, exactly. And then the last thing I'll leave you with was I always, started every morning and ended every evening with two sentences. In the morning, it was, What am I going to do today to make money?
Ooh, I like, okay.
Okay, because it's all about me. So what am I going to do?
Yep.
What actions am I going to take to make things happen?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can change that however you want. What am I going to do today to find a prospect? What am I going to do today to get a listing? What am I going to do today to find a buyer?
Yeah.
Whatever it means to you. We're talking real estate business here, so I mean that's why I'm so
Yeah,
focused
for
on,
sure.
that part of
Absolutely.
it. And every night I would say to myself before I went to sleep, what did I do today to make money?
Nice.
And the whole point being for doing that was I held myself accountable on a basically 18-hour basis.
Yes.
I
And
didn't let
that's
it I
huge.
didn't let it go a week and say, what did I do this week to
Yeah.
make money? What did I do? And what am I going to do this week? What did I do this week? It wasn't a month. It wasn't like, I said, okay, what am I going to do this month? And then what did I do this month? And I
Quarterly
found out I
review.
didn't do
Yeah.
anything. But then there's 30 days gone there, right?
Yeah.
Or what so many people do is they do their business plan, and this is timely. They
Yeah.
do their business plan at this time of the year for next year. And when they're doing it, they pull out last year's business plan and say, okay, let's see what did I say I was going to do last year and what did I achieve? Holy smokes. And they look at their business plan a
Yeah.
year later, right? And so again, that's a whole year gone and you don't know if
Yeah.
you've done that. Now, what's even worse than that is only 10% of people in this industry will even do a business plan. So what I'm saying is to those people who take the time to do a business plan, doing it once a year isn't enough. Doing it once a month isn't enough. Doing it once a week isn't enough. Do it every day and
Look
say,
at it
what
every
did you
day.
do
Yeah.
today to achieve your goal?
Get closer to that goal. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's powerful. Thank you very much. I wrote those down. I like them. Um, okay, so if somebody wants to reach out to you to become part of Royal LePage Triland, what is the best course of action? Where should they, I mean, they can DM me, I can connect, but what's the
Yeah,
best way?
so I mean, they can reach out to me and I can have a conversation with them. But I'll be honest with you, the best person in our company to reach out to is Adam Miller.
Okay.
He's our sales manager. He is the one that will set up an interview or go down and go through with you and ask you. I mean, the way I like to go through with salespeople, and Adam does, is we don't know if we're the right company for you. So you tell us what is it that you're looking for in a real estate company, and we can tell you whether or not that's us.
Nice.
Because we know what our core values are. We know what we provide. And if the first thing that comes out of your mouth is you want the best commission rates, that's not us. Thank you. Go somewhere else.
Yep.
And I don't mean to just kind of slough it off that quickly, but you can't be the best in the industry by being the cheapest.
Great. Yep.
And that's a message we teach our salespeople because our salespeople are also not the cheapest salespeople in the industry,
That's correct. Yep.
but we damn sure have the best salespeople in the industry. And that's what makes
I
that's what
agree.
makes the difference.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Adam can be reached at the London office. I will put his contact info in the show notes, and yours as well. This has been wonderful. I can't believe an hour has gone by, but this has been absolutely wonderful, Peter. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for
And
having me, Crystal. I've really enjoyed it.
oh, it was wonderful. So, guys, this is Krystal Lee Lucier, also known as your Home Sweet Home 519 Realtor, Krystal Lee Moore, chatting with Peter Meyer of Royal LePage Triland Realty in London. And we will see you next time. Bye, guys.
Take care. All the best.